Today on our 2014 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the Roadmaster Diode 7-wire to 6-wire Flexo-Coil Wiring Kit. When we want to tow our Jeep, we're going to need a base plate, tow bar wiring, the tow bar itself, as well as a braking system. Now specifically for our Jeep, we're also going to need an automatic battery disconnect, as well as a charge line kit to make sure our battery stays charged. Whenever we're flat towing our Jeep, it's going to be very imperative that our lights match the same as they do on our motorhome. That way, if we're driving down the highway, we need to change lanes, we can do it safely and everyone knows what's going on around us. Typically, that's going to mean that you're going to mount some kind of external light. We've all seen those magnetic lights that people put, and they mount on the top of their vehicle and run a wire to the front. Now that can be a little bit of a hassle because we're going to have to set it up each time that we want to flat tow our Jeep, and we're going to have the potential of that wire rubbing across the paint, causing some damage. Not to mention, keep in mind, there's not a whole lot of metal on our Jeep, especially up top or even down here at the bumper for the magnets to stick to. But our diodes are going to install behind our taillight housing. So it's not going to change the appearance at all on the outside, and it's going to use the factory bulbs to make the signals. And that's going to be really nice because we're not going to have to worry about that procedure every time we want to flat tow. It's a one-time installation, and all we got to do is hook up all of our components and we're ready to hit the road. And our diodes are going to connect to this 6-way plug that we have mounted on the front of our Jeep. That's going to have a spring-loaded door to keep all the dirt and debris out when we're not towing. But since it does have a 6-pin connection, we're going to be able to add a braking system and possibly a charge line kit later on down the road. Our diodes are going to come with an umbilical as well, so we can plug the 6-way into the front of our Jeep and then the 7-way into the back of our motorhome. The cable is going to be coiled, so it'll take up some of that slack when we're a little closer to each vehicle, but then when they stretch out, we'll have plenty of room because this cable is going to stretch out all the way to 8 feet. Our diode kit is going to come with everything we need to get it installed in our Jeep. We'll get the plug, the diodes, all the connectors, and about 30 feet of 4-pole wire. Now that'd be plenty of room to get from the front all the way back to the taillights. But you may want to pick up a few feet of extra 16-gauge wire because we are going to have to go from the left side to the right side at the back of our Jeep. But now that we've seen the end result, let's show you how to get our diodes installed. To begin our installation, we're going to start at the front of our Jeep. Now on our base plate, we already have a spot to mount our electrical connector, so I made sure to leave enough wire here so that I could wire it up once we mount it. But we ran our wire, and I went behind the skid plate here. I followed it along, and I came to the outside of the frame, and then I went up into the engine compartment. So I brought my wire up over here on the driver's side by the headlight, and I started running along the outside edge of the engine compartment. Once I got back towards the firewall, I dropped it back down. Now the real main reason why I brought it into the engine compartment and dropped it back down is so I didn't have to worry about any heat sources like the exhaust or too many moving parts like the suspension, front axle, or any of that. So my wire dropped down right by the front wheel well here, and then I just passed it along right on top of the frame rail here, zip tying it to some of these existing lines that are already in the way, trying to keep it as far away from the exhaust as I can. Just followed the frame rail down, and then I went over this cross member here, over all the rear suspension and the rear axle, then I have it coming down right here by the rear axle. Now we're going to move up top, and we're going to take our taillights out and test all of our circuits. Now at the back of our Jeep, our taillight is going to be held in by 2 screws. There's a total of 4, but we only want to remove the 2 that are on the inside. So we'll grab a Phillips bit, and we'll pull those 2 screws out. Then we can grab our taillight assembly, and we'll work it loose. Now there's going to be a tab on our taillight. We'll push down on that tab until we can get the connector out. And we'll repeat that on the driver's side as well. With the taillights removed, I went ahead and turned on my headlights. That way we can get our running light circuit. And we're going to want to take a circuit tester and test each one of these pins to see which one corresponds with our taillight circuit. So it's going to be that top center pin. If we come to the back of the connector, we can see that it's going to be a white wire with a purple stripe. Now we're going to repeat testing on the other side as well. We want to write down or remember this color wire. I turn my headlights off, and now I have an assistant pressing on the brake pedal so we can isolate that signal. We're going to test the same way, going through and checking all the pins. So this one's going to be the top right pin, and if we look at the back of our plug, it's going to be the white wire with the yellow stripe. Now over here on the driver's side, both of our wires are in the same position, they're just a different color. Our taillight wire is going to be a white wire with an orange stripe, and our brake wire is going to be the white wire with a green stripe on it. So we can grab the end of our 4-pole wire now, and we're going to go ahead and split each one of these so we have 4 separate wires. The easiest way to do that, you take a pair of cutters, you go right in between the wires. You should be able to get enough to where we can split it, and then we can start pulling the wires apart. Now you want to separate these as far up at your last anchor point as you can get. Now that we have all 4 wires separated, we're going to be working with our yellow and brown wire first. We're going to find the end of it, and we're going to pass our wire up through the bottom so that we can get access to it right by our tail light. So if we come to the bottom here, there is going to be an opening right where our wiring is going to go up into the frame. And we'll pass our wires through enough to where we can reach into the housing and pull them through. You want to pull all the slack out and bring all the excess up to the housing here. I went ahead and pulled away the loom and the tape that was covering our wires up so we can get access to them. So we'll start with our brake wire over here on the driver's side. We're going to come downstream from the plug a little bit. We're going to cut the wire in half. We want to strip back both ends. And we're going to grab one of the diodes from our kit that has all blue spade terminals on it. Take 2 of them off. And we're going to crimp them onto the wire we just stripped. And we'll grab our diode. We'll remove that last spade terminal. And if we look at it, it's going to be labeled. We'll have 2 terminals on the inside and 1 terminal on the outside. The single terminal going to the out is going to be the one closest to the plug. So we'll plug our spade terminal in, we'll take our other wire and we'll plug it into one of the in terminals. We can grab our yellow wire, and we're going to estimate about how much we need. It's always a good idea to give yourself a little bit of extra. We'll cut our wire, and we'll strip back the end of it. We'll take our last spade terminal and crimp it in place. Plug it into the last terminal on our diode. So this is what your brake diode should look like. We should have our brake wire coming in and then going out, and then also having our yellow wire come to the inside as well. Then we'll come to our taillight circuit, which is going to be that white wire with the orange stripe on the driver's side. We're going to do the same thing. We'll cut it in half and strip back both ends. Except this time we're going to grab the diode that has one of the yellow terminals, but we're going to be using that here in just a minute. We'll crimp on both of the blue terminals onto our white and orange wire. Again, the one closest to the plug will go into the out terminal. We're going to remove the yellow terminal. We'll plug in the other blue one into the inside. We'll do the same thing with our brown wire. We'll estimate about how much we need. We'll cut off the excess, and we're going to hold on to the excess wire this time. So we'll strip back the end of the excess wire, as well as the wire coming from the bottom. We'll combine the 2 wires together, and we can take our yellow terminal and we'll crimp it over. You notice that the yellow terminal is a little bit bigger. It's just going to make it easier to get both of these wires into one side of that terminal. And we'll plug that in to the other end terminal. And then the brown excess wire that we have left, this is going to go back down into the taillight housing and meet up with our green wire and run over to the passenger side, and we're going to hook up our diodes the same way. Now, chances are that the brown wire might be a little short to go back down and reach the other side. So in our kit, they are going to provide us with a butt connector. So I'll go ahead and take my butt connector, I'll slide it over the end of my wire. I'm going to take some more brown wire that I had laying around, but if you need some, you can pick up some wire here at eTrailer.com. And crimp that down. Now we can take the extended wire and drop it down, send it over to the passenger side. Now for my brown and green wire, I dropped it down, came to the inside of the frame rail, then I came to the back of the bumper, and I actually ran my wire on the inside, passing it along until I got to the outside here, and I ran my wire up and over to the outside. Now on the passenger side, we are going to have this panel that's blocking our way to get to our taillight housing. So I drilled a small hole and I passed my wires through. Now I'm going to come back and I'm going to fill that hole up with silicone so we don't have to worry about any kind of leaks. And we should have one more wire left, and that'll be our white wire. This is going to be our ground, and we're going to attach this to the frame or a nice flat spot of sheet metal. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the excess wire off, just making sure I can reach the bottom of the frame here. I'm going to strip back the end of my wire. We'll grab the small ring terminal from our kit, and we can crimp it in place. Now in our kit also, they're going to give us a self-tapping screw. So I'm going to get a 5/16 nut driver, and I'm going to get the screw started in the bottom of the frame first, and I'll take it out and install my ring terminal. And when you tighten that ring terminal down, you want it to be snug enough to where it doesn't move, but you don't want to strip out the screw. But with all of our connections made, we can go back up top, clean up any wires, and put our taillights back in place. Now I'm going to peel the backing off of each one of my diodes. And since we have a decent amount of room in our taillight housing, I'm actually just going to stick them together. And we can take our plug it back into our taillight, and we can push all of our wiring and our diodes back in, and we can re-secure our taillight. Now we'll come to the front of our Jeep and we can get ready to mount our plug. On the back, we're going to have this rubber boot. We'll remove that from the plug itself, and for now I'm just going to slide it onto my wire and push it out of the way. If we look at the back of our plug, each one of these terminals is going to be labeled. The top one is going to be TM for trailer marker, that'll be our brown wire. GD for ground, that'll be our white wire. LT for left turn, that'll be our yellow wire. RT for right turn, that'll be our green wire. Then if you can see that there's an A in the center pin, that's going to be for our 12-volt power source if we hook one up. And then the one over here would be for your electric brakes. So you want to take a really small Phillips head screwdriver. We're going to loosen up these set screws. You don't want to take them all the way out. You just want to loosen them up enough so we can get the wire in there. Then we'll separate each one of our wires, except this time we don't have to go back that far. We just maybe need a couple inches or so of each wire individually. And we can strip back the ends of each one of our wires, and we'll start making our connections. Now whenever I put my wires in, I always like to leave just a little bit of the copper wire at the top and not get the insulation inside of there, because sometimes that can cause some intermittent connection issues. You just want to make sure you get the copper section in there and you get a good clamp with that set screw. Now once you have all your wires hooked up, you can slide our dust cover back over the back of it. I like to take some electrical tape and wrap it up. It will help keep the boot in place, but it's also going to help prevent any kind of moisture or debris from getting inside that connector. Now I'm going to take a couple self-tapping screws that came with our base plate, and I'm going to secure my plug right here at the bracket. Now the final step of our installation is going to be testing to make sure all the circuits work properly. You can hook up to your motorhome or you can hook up to a tester. I have my Jeep hooked up to a tester, and if I turn it on, you can see the taillight functions working properly, as well as a left turn signal, my brakes, and our right turn signal. All we have left to do now is hook up to our motorhome and hit the road. That'll finish up your look at the Roadmaster Diode 7-wire to 6-wire Flexo-Coil Wiring Kit on our 2014 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited.